have chosen the priest's daughter as my anchor tonight. I am 34, the daughter of our town's pastor, and I have learned to keep my heart tucked beneath the pressed sleeves of church life, where every smile is rehearsed and every feeling wears a modest, quiet dress. That night, just past midnight, I read his text and felt a small flame flicker inside my chest. He said we could not pretend any longer, that our conversations after service had become more than courtesy. That the warmth in his voice when he spoke to me about the bread needed for the poor or the choir's fragile harmony had grown into something I could no longer file away under duty and grace. Daniel was the priest's favorite church member, kind, patient, always there to listen, always ready to lift a box of groceries or a hymn book, and in his company, the church basement felt somehow softer. As if the walls themselves breathed with a secret longing we both dared not name aloud. The morning after that message, I stood at the kitchen window and watched the streetlight puddle over the yard, listening for the familiar creak of the back gate, the sound I used to think belonged only to old sermons and old prayers, not to two grown adults who found each other in the margins of holiness. Setup. My life had moved in safe, blessed circles since my husband died 2 years ago, leaving me to tend to my aging mother and to a church that had become both shelter and scaffold. I ran the outreach program, sorted donations, taught the children's class with a patient smile, and tucked away every ache until the last maid of honor duty was finished and I could catch my breath again. The townspeople saw a woman who did not crumble, who stood straight in the face of loss with a cup of tea and a gentle word for every visitor. What they did not see was the hollow place where his laughter used to live, or how quietly love can return when a man who knows the language of quiet faith speaks your name in the glare of church lights. Daniel never spoke of romance in bold terms. He spoke in the soft cadences of care, as if love could be tended like a garden, watered with patience, pruned by restraint, and harvested only when the season felt right. The two of us shared the evening after the service in the little garden behind the old stone church, where the air smelled of rain-soaked soil and lilac bushes that clung to the fence, and there we found a moment in which every question paused and every fear hesitated, as though faith itself pressed a gentle hand to our chests and asked us to listen. Inciting incident. The night the text arrived, I stood in the doorway of the church hall while the last volunteers emptied the room, and Daniel approached with that familiar, careful step he used when he wanted to say something true but delicate. He spoke of sleepless nights and a confession he could no longer keep hidden, of the way my name tended to his breath when he prayed for the strength to do the right thing, and of how our banished longing kept returning like a stubborn echo in the nave after every song faded. He did not beg for permission to love me, nor did he pretend there was no cost to the truth. He simply asked if we could walk this road with eyes open, knowing full well that our footsteps might disturb a peace others held sacred. I felt the old dread rise. What would Father say? And beneath it, a fierce hunger for honesty I had learned to bury alongside the marriage vows I kept in the drawer of my mind. When Daniel reached for my hand, I did not pull away. I did not pretend to mistake his warmth for mercy or his concern for pity. I just stood there, counting the seconds as the night exhaled, and admitted to myself that love here, in the moonlit garden, had become both a mercy and a test. Rising action. The weeks that followed braided joy with guilt, warmth with discipline, and longing with a vow to protect the fragile trust that bound us to something larger than ourselves. We kept our meetings to the edge of a scriptural light, walking the parish lanes where the sound of crickets rose like small prayers, speaking in whispers about boundary lines and the shape of honest affection. My father, a man who taught forgiveness from the pulpit, noticed the way Daniel's eyes lingered on me during the offertory hymn, how he steadied me when I spoke too quickly about the next outreach event, how his silence could hold a room of gossip at bay with a single, steady glance. He did not condemn us outright. He offered a different counsel, a path of confession and accountability, urging us to bring our truth into the light with the same courage one would bring to a confession about sin. The challenge grew sharper when a rumor slipped through the church walls, carried by a gust of Sunday gossip and the fear that our closeness might fracture the faith the town depended on. I felt the old ache of loss pressing at my chest, a reminder that love could heal or wound, and I prayed for the discernment to choose the healing road. If there is grace in choosing the harder road, I believed I was learning it now, step by careful step, listening to the old drumbeat of the organ in the sanctuary and the new rhythm of my own beating heart as Daniel and I gathered courage to tell the truth not as a surrender, but as a commitment. Mid-story CTA, if this confession has you on the edge of your seat, hit like and share because you will not believe what happens next. As I stood before Father with Daniel at my side, the church lights a little dimmer, the air a touch warmer, and a decision that would bend the future into a shape neither of us could have foreseen finally began to take form. Climax and resolution. The crisis forced us to name what we wanted in life without flinching from the consequences. I asked my father for permission to let my heart find a life with Daniel, even if that life meant a slow departure from the familiar pews and a different kind of service in the world beyond the sanctuary's gates. He spoke of faith as a living thing, not a wall to hide behind, and he asked us to prove our devotion through patient, honest work for the good of the town and its people. Not through a sudden public declaration that could fracture the very ground we believed held us steady. Daniel and I chose a path that honored the life we had already built, quiet dates in the daylight, shared meals with honest conversation, a promise to be there for the church in ways that did not compromise our need for truth. We did not marry within the sight of the congregation, nor did we retreat behind a curtain of secrecy. We embraced the possibility that love could grow in the open space between faith and longing. That forgiveness could walk with us like a trusted friend. The town welcomed our new chapter with cautious smiles and curious questions, and I learned to answer them with the same grace I offered to others in need. In time, the tremor in my spirit softened into a steady, hopeful pulse. Daniel became not the forbidden shadow at the edge of my life, but the patient light guiding me toward a future where grief had given way to healing, and a second chance at love had found a home inside the simplest acts of care and truth. Epilogue and final wrap. Love did not erase my past, but it gave it a kinder shape, a way to speak of loss and still believe in renewal. I am learning to map a life where devotion to faith and devotion to another human being can coexist, where second chances are not a betrayal of what came before, but a bridge to what might come next. The road ahead feels longer than a single sermon, but it now feels possible. The faith I carry in my chest, meeting the faith I have for us in Daniel. And in this quiet choice, I find a larger purpose, the chance to help others seek forgiveness and to model a love that is patient, brave, and true. If you crave more raw emotional confessions, please like, share, and subscribe. Your next chapter awaits. Emotional storytelling, forbidden love, second chances, mature romance, infidelity in marriage, love after loss, grief and healing, tenant love story, romantic narration, YouTube romance, healing through love, slow burn romance, older woman, younger man, heartfelt story, true feelings, emotional connection, faceless love, Olivia and Marcus, narrative romance, love found me.